Hello and welcome to everyone today to our webinar on work experience. My name is Jenny and I'm a member of the student recruitment team here at St George's University of London. Before we get started, I want to go through a few housekeeping points with you. You're not able to turn on your microphones to speak, but you can type questions in the chat box. Your answers can only be seen by our team. We'd love to hear from you, so please feel free to add your questions to the chat box. With me today is my colleague Jacob and our student ambassador Omar, and they're working behind the scenes to answer your questions. So would you like to come on screen, Jacob and Omar, to say hello to our audience?
Hi everyone,
Hello.
My name is Jacob. I'm the Student Recruitment Manager here at St George's and I'll be in the background answering your questions today.
And hello there, my name's Omar and I'm one of the final year medical students here to talk about my experience.
Fantastic, thank you guys. We're recording today's event, so if you miss anything, rest assured you'll be sent a link to the recording after the event. So what will we be covering in today's talk? I'm going to briefly introduce you to St George's and we'll consider the question, what do universities mean by work experience? And then we'll think about what you can do to gain work experience during this pandemic. We'll also consider why universities ask for work experience. And in preparation for how you might use your work experience to support your application, we'll discuss the importance of self-reflection. We'll draw on the expertise of our student ambassador throughout this talk, and if we have time, our ambassador will look to answer your questions. So keep the questions coming in and remember to use the chat box. So at St George's, our students are immersed in a healthcare setting as we share our site with one of the busiest London hospitals, St George's Hospital. We started as a medical school back in 1752, then located in Hyde Park in central London, and in the 1980s we moved to our current location in Tooting in southwest London. Today our students can choose from a range of health-focused courses, including medicine, healthcare and science programs. We offer an in-house dissection room and pathology museum, as well as specially designed simulation suites, providing the highest quality teaching experience for our students. St George's Hospital is a major trauma centre for southwest London and Surrey. You might already be familiar with the hospital if you've ever watched the television programme 24 Hours in A&E, which is recorded at St George's Hospital. Our close relationship with the hospital and our focus on providing medicine and health science courses means that our students are surrounded by staff and students who are passionate about healthcare. So before we get started, I wanted to ask you, our audience, if you think you have any relevant work experience. And I'm going to launch a poll, so you'll get the question. Okay, hopefully you can all see that now. If you're currently watching this webinar in full screen, okay, we're collecting responses, fantastic. So I was just checking that I hadn't closed it on you, but no, we've got questions coming in, that's right, responses coming in, that's fantastic. If you're having any difficulty in seeing this question and choosing your response, you could always try and reduce the screen and hopefully that would work for you. But I can see we've got about 70% of you have voted, so that's fantastic. I'll just give you a little bit more to give everybody an opportunity. So, and I will reveal the answers to you all to see what you all selected. But I can see that we're getting towards the end. So if you want a chance to have your say, do so now, as I'm about to close the voting system. So let us know if you think you've got some relevant work experience now, based on what you think you've done. So okay, what I'll do is I'm going to close that now, and then I'm going to share that those with you, the responses with you. So hopefully you can see the responses. And I can see here that quite a few of you, at least half of you, have got work experience, which is fantastic. And hopefully you'll get some more tips in this webinar today. And we've got 23% saying no, and the other 30% saying not sure. So hopefully this webinar will give you an opportunity to get started and thinking about what work experience we're asking for and what you could possibly find. So so thank you so much for getting involved in that. So I'm going to now explain a little bit about our policy here at St. George's. So during the pandemic, we understand that it's very difficult for you to get clinical experience. And here you can see on the screen the admissions guidelines for St. George's. And the important section reads as follows. We still require our applicants to have an understanding of the realities of working as a healthcare professional and to show that you have the necessary skills and attributes for your chosen career. So universities are looking to see that you've gained some skills and experience in helping others, and that you have a realistic understanding of the career that you wish to join. And I'd encourage everyone to visit our website to see our suggestions for work experience, and you can see the link there on the screen for you. And on our website, you will find links to online resources for the healthcare sector. And you can also learn more about the NHS, as well as get tips on volunteering and suggestions for extracurricular activities. So we're going to go through a few things today, but I'd highly recommend, please go to our website because we've got even more information there for you. So what do we mean when we talk about work experience? And you can see here some healthcare examples we will explore. It's important to state that each university sets its own entry requirements for its courses, and this means that work experience requirements can also vary. So do check each university for further details. So let's now take a look at our examples. A care environment, and this can include a shadowing at a hospital, a GP practice, or working in a hospice or a care home. And this work experience often focuses on a clinical patient-based setting where you get to meet specialist healthcare workers and medical doctors. Other work experience examples that focus on caring for others include supporting family. If you have a family member with health needs who you're supporting currently, this may be relevant work experience. Community work, this could be doing voluntary work with vulnerable groups such as the homeless, helping out at a food bank, working with refugees, working with people with disabilities, volunteering with the St. George's Ambulance. Teaching or working with children, and this could be working with youth groups, mentoring younger pupils at schools, running a Sunday school, a part-time job, and there are many skills that you can develop with a part-time job, such as teamwork, leadership and communication skills, and these are all relevant and required skills for healthcare. The same is true for sports groups, teamwork, time management, handling pressure and responsibilities. These are key skills that you can develop when you're part of a team. We'll hear more from our ambassador shortly, and they'll share their work experience stories and insights with you. But first, let's take a look at some frequently asked questions that we receive. So, how much work experience do I need? The more work experience you can get, the more insight you can gain, and it can be helpful to volunteer over a longer period. So you could get lots of short periods of work, or you get longer periods, which can be really helpful. What's most important is what you learn during your experience and what insight you can draw from that experience. And we'll be considering this when we look at the reflection skills later in this webinar. Another question is, what type of work experience is best? Well, work experience within your chosen path is obviously what you'd really want to be getting, and if you can get it. And otherwise, consider a broad range of work experience options. Anything where you are working with people in need of care is useful for healthcare. So this encompasses everything that we've just talked about here. Another question we often get is, I did work experience a few years ago, will this still be relevant? Recent experience is usually the most relevant. However, if your work experience was some time ago, but you learned a lot from that experience, then that work experience can be relevant and useful for you. So there's no hard and fast rules with the time, but obviously the sooner you've done more recent work experience that you've done, the more it's in your mind and fresh, and you've. So we're going to give you some ideas of where you can find online work experience later in this talk. So I'm going to ask you all again, obviously now that we've looked at the work experience that we've considered, I'd like to ask you again a few of you think that you now have some relevant work experience. So given all the examples that I've just gone through, how and your knowledge of what you've been doing, how does that fit now? Do you think you have some relevant work experience? And I can see that fantastic, it's launched and you can all see it, and getting a lot of responses. Fantastic. Just give it a few more moments. So you know, you could be thinking about shadowing or part-time work or mentoring of young children, or anything else that we've looked at. And I'll just give you a moment more because I can see there's a few, and I think we've got close to everyone doing that now. So I'm going to close that and share that with you. And you can see this time, that a lot more of you feel like you do have some relevant work experience, which is fantastic. And for those of you who are still not sure, or you don't have it, that's fine. Hopefully you'll get some knowledge from this webinar that will help you in your research to get you started and getting some work experience. So thank you all so much for getting involved with that. So I'm going to now move on with our. So now I want to bring on Omar and see if I just want to ask you, Omar, first of all, what work experience did you complete before making your application? I appreciate you've obviously did your application some time ago, but what work experience did you complete before making your application to your medical course?
So I did 2 weeks in a hospital, so 5 days in a gastro ward and 5 days in another ward. And then what I did was this long-term volunteering experience at a care home. So I went there once a week for an hour, and I did that over about a couple of months, maybe 8 or 9 months.
Oh, fantastic. And what did you and what, tell us a little bit more about what you learnt during that time as well.
So I think the idea of the whole long-term work experience was it was more of a caring role. So what I did was I ended up working with the people that lived there as well as the staff there, helping them out and actually getting involved in the care, talking to the residents. Whereas working in a hospital or work experience in a hospital was more of a shadowing role. So it was more observing how members of the medical team work and how things work in a hospital. So 2 different things, I think.
Oh, fantastic. And did you find it easy to get work experience, or was it challenging? Because obviously you did yours some time ago before the pandemic. Mm-hmm. How was that getting that work experience for you?
I think getting work experience has always been challenging, pandemic or not. I think you need a lot of perseverance and making sure you just keep looking in your local area, look for opportunities, look for any care homes you can apply to. And then in terms of hospital work experience, it's all about sending loads of emails and trying to get in touch with people who work in the hospital and seeing whether you can get it through them.
Fantastic. So it's a lot of persistence is what I'm hearing here. Just keep trying, and hopefully someone will respond. That's fantastic. But it's good to know that, and you did a variety of work experience as well. And would you recommend doing lots of different work experience, or one longer piece, or both?
I think definitely do something over long term. So whether it's working at a care home, doing something regularly over a long term, I'd definitely recommend that. And then getting loads of little bits of different work experience along the side. So working, say, at a hospital or a GP practice for a couple of days, and then one long term as well.
Okay, bit of both is best. And did you obviously you did you weren't in a pandemic, so you weren't really looking for online work experience, but I know that you're involved in some online work experience with the university. So how have you found it, with getting online work experience?
I think it's they've improved a lot during the pandemic. Now we've got this Observe GP platform, and what they've done is really well. What you can do is watch GP consultations and see what it's like in a GP practice, and it's not only working with doctors, it's consultation with other healthcare professionals in a GP practice, whether that's nurses or physiotherapists. So it's got all that. So that, I think that's a very good solid foundation for anyone that can log on to and register on the website. It's free to do. And then I've heard there's loads of other experiences available now as well, with Brighton Medical School and a couple of others online as well. So it's quite good.
Yeah, that's great. I will be giving our audience some links to those places, sites, towards the end of the webinar. So, but it's great that you said how, even though those online resources are mainly targeted for medicine students, or those looking to apply for medicine course, it's great that you can use that resource to really see what a clinical experience is like. So hopefully that will be helpful for our entire audience. So thank you so much, Omar, and we'll obviously get back to you later on in the talk. So now I wanted to really get a chance to speak with our audience and find out what type of courses that you're interested in. So just to give us an idea of what programs you're interested in. So if you want to use the chat function, and Jacob will be able to see your responses, and he'll let us know. So are you obviously all in, if you're interested in healthcare, and are you interested in nursing, in medicine, in paramedic science? Are you interested in pharmacology, radiology? What courses are you interested in? If you could let us know in the chat function, and Jacob, you'll be able to let us know what the main courses that people are interested in.
Yeah,
so
we are getting quite a few different ones come in. We've got a few people talking about medicine, some in occupational therapy, and in paramedics and physiotherapy. Couple now for radiography have just come in as well, which is really great. We've had a couple come in for nursing, which I know we won't cover specifically today, but I think some of the stuff we'll talk about will still be applicable to you if you're interested in nursing. And the same for midwifery. A lot more variety coming in now as well. So we've had biomed, paramedic. Seems like we've got kind of everything covered in the room.
amazing. Thank you all so much for getting involved. So that's great. Some obviously great healthcare courses there. So so next I want to consider how you can build on your knowledge of healthcare roles and where you might find some hands-on experience. And I'll provide links for some of these websites at the end of the webinar. And given the courses that you're interested in, there's a lot of information on our website with links for those courses as well. So hopefully this will all be really useful for you. So, and of course, we've had some great examples from our ambassador. So online resources. So we want you to build up your knowledge on healthcare roles using online resources. So a great place to start looking at healthcare roles is the NHS website. and I will provide that link at the end of this webinar. And interviews with healthcare professionals. Now, this could be looking at TV shows, news reports, podcasts, or articles that you've read from healthcare professionals. And don't just focus on COVID, because obviously there's a lot out there, but look at stories that are that you're interested in, and those that will give you an insight into the healthcare career. Online work experience. So look around and see if you can find online work experience. And for those of you who are interested in medicine, Omar has already explained there's the Brighton and Sussex Medical School, which provides a virtual work experience course. And then there's also the Royal College of General Practitioners that offers virtual work experience with their Observe GP program. And for those of you who are not wanting to become doctors, you too could find some real benefit from having a look at those programs. These online programs will give you an insight into the clinical setting and patient care. And you can also find some great information on our Making Your Application Stand Out page on our website, on the Explore St George's webpage. And we provide tips and suggestions for each of our clinical courses, which many of you are interested in. So volunteering, you might want to consider volunteering if you haven't already. And the NHS Volunteer Responder Scheme, a Good Sam, is a great place to start. You might consider collecting shopping from vulnerable people, or check your local council website for a WhatsApp community group, or you might want to look at local food bank for support. I'm sure that they would love that. There's the COVID-19 Mutual Aid UK, which is a great way to get involved and help your community, as well as develop those key skills and experience that will help you with your applications to a healthcare course. Some volunteering activities are only available to the people who are over 18, so do check first and do make sure that you keep yourself safe when undertaking any of these activities. School studies, you might want to think about the skills and competencies that you are developing through your academic study. Are you working virtually in a group at school in a group project, or working on presentations, or can you assist your teacher with lessons? If you have developed new skills during this pandemic while at school, what are the skills and how would these help you in your healthcare career? So some really good things to think about. So I want to bring back Omar and see if you've got any suggestions regarding looking for work experience.
So the way I did it was just a Google search, look for any local care homes, and call them up and see whether they want any volunteers or someone coming in. Now with COVID, I don't know how possible that will be nowadays. The other thing, and this is a suggestion that might work nowadays as well, would be a charity shop. So try and call up your local charity shops, and there's loads in pretty much anywhere, especially in London. And they'd always want volunteers and people coming in, helping them out. And what you can learn from a charity shop is huge. You can learn communication skills, interacting with the people, working in a team, and it's just people-facing roles is very, very useful. Again, part-time job, very, very useful. So if you can get a part-time job, you can always put that as work experience as well. And then it's the online work experience is quite useful.
Yeah, that's great. And we will obviously be looking at how to utilize the work experience to maximize your potential of getting a place on a healthcare course in with a personal statement, but specifically we'll look at the interview process and how you can utilize the work experience there. So thank you so much, Omar, for your suggestion, and we'll now continue on and look at what universities mean by work experience and where you might gain work experience. So now that we've looked at why universities ask for work experience, this is what we're looking for. So to gain insight. Firstly, universities want you to have an insight into the course and the career that you're applying for. It's a big commitment, training in healthcare at university, and universities need to know that you are fully informed and that you have a realistic insight into the role. And work experience is a great way to gain this insight. And you might want to ask yourself, what challenges or rewards is there in working in healthcare? And do you want to work with people in need of care? And do you want to work in a hospital setting or in a community setting? And hopefully many of you have already started to think about this, but if you haven't, it's a great time to start thinking about these type of questions. It's helpful to understand the career pathway before you make a commitment to undertake a university degree. But remember, work experience is not the only way to gain insight into the career. As discussed, you can gain insight through researching the career, by talking to students already studying on a course that interests you. That's a fantastic way to get some more insight into the course. And a lot of universities have that connection with their students, so do take advantage of that. Get your questions ready and ask as much as you possibly can about the course and really learn what you'll be getting involved in. And also looking at our virtual work experience and as much online research as you can possibly get to know more about the NHS and about your career and then what you would be doing with your career. Okay. Now, show commitment. This is about going the extra mile to find out about working in healthcare, and it's a really great way for you to show universities that you are committed and dedicated. By undertaking additional work experience or research, you can show universities that you are a serious candidate and that you've taken time out from your other commitments to gain this insight. And showcase key skills and qualities. Here you can use your work experience that you've done to showcase relevant skills and qualities to universities. And we're going to consider some key skills and qualities now. So here are the key skills and qualities that St. George's looks for from our medical candidates in particular, but these are all very relevant skills for any healthcare worker. So let's explore some of these concepts in more detail and why they're important for healthcare workers. So empathy, this is the ability to understand the needs of others from their point of view. To be a successful healthcare practitioner, you need to keep a level of professional detachment from your patient and still consider what another person is experiencing and feeling. And you might want to think about when healthcare workers would need empathy and why. Communication skills, when working in a healthcare team and you work directly with patients, it's important to communicate clearly and effectively with both your colleagues and patients. And you might have to explain a complicated procedure to patients in terms that they can understand. And how would you communicate with a small child or a patient whose first language isn't English? And being able to adapt your communication when it's needed is key. Organization and problem solving. So being organized with your time and able to prioritize your skills is valuable in any career or profession, but they're essential when you're working in a busy, time-pressured environment, such as working in a hospital. And I hope you can see that being able to problem solve in creative ways and in a timely fashion is relevant to a lot of healthcare roles. And for example, how might you encourage a reluctant patient to take their medication? As an occupational therapist, you might have to consider how to adapt someone's living space so that it suits their needs. And diagnosis, which obviously a large part of healthcare roles require diagnosis, this requires problem solving. Insight and integrity. So insight is about having a deeper understanding of something. It might involve having insight into yourself, your coping mechanisms, your strengths, and those areas you need to work on. It might also be having insight into other people and their actions. And think about why would this be important to healthcare? Integrity requires you to be honest and to hold principles. We're going to be looking at the NH values in a moment. Initiative and resilience, depending on your healthcare role, being able to take the initiative in a situation and decide on a course of action can be crucial, such as for paramedics. Resilience can involve being creative with solutions, such as how do you respond if your first idea wasn't successful? And how do you cope with setbacks? If you're working in a tough, stressful healthcare job, where patients can be at their most vulnerable and may not want your help, it can be really tough. And having resilience and mental strength to cope with these things and to get back into the work the next day can be a real asset and be very important. So being aware of your coping mechanisms and how you de-stress and recuperate after difficult situations can be really useful. Which is often why universities are looking for what you do in your personal life that is fulfilling for you, and ways that you de-stress and keep that balance of work-life experience. So teamwork, this is the ability to work collaboratively, to make decisions and to contribute as a member of the team to achieve a shared goal. When working in healthcare, it's important to remember that the shared goal is improving and managing the health of the patient, and that all members of the healthcare team contribute in different ways and have their own specialism. So what skills do you think are required when working as part of the team? So that's really something to have a think about. And the reason we're talking about these competencies is that as someone interested in applying to healthcare courses, you need to be thinking, do I have these skills, and how do I show the university that I have these skills? And work experience is a great way for you to illustrate that you have these skills, but obviously it's important that you understand what these key skills are and that you can communicate it at the necessary time. So here I want to look at the NHS values. So the NHS also has a set of values that you should be aware of, especially if you want to apply to a healthcare course. And do your values align with these values? And I'd encourage you to view the NHS's website, and you can see the link here. Spend some time. You can go through each of these values and really see if your values align with the NHS. And some of these NHS values and key competencies will be a part of the interview process for our clinical courses at St. George's. So tip there, so if you're applying to us, do make sure that you're fully aware of these key skills and qualities and values. Now let's consider how to make the most out of your work experience or online research or personal experience. So reflection is a great way to explore and examine the links between your work experience and the key skills and qualities that you've developed, or any insights that you've gained about yourself. So universities want to know that you've learned from your experiences. And in a moment, I'll provide you with some questions that you can use to structure your reflection, to really tease out your understanding. It's not enough to list off the experiences that you've done or the resources that you've consulted. What we want to know is, why are these experiences, why do they matter? And what insight did you gain from these? And these experiences are your evidence, but you need to show how your understanding links to the profession that you want to join. So you get to show universities what you've learned within your personal statement and also at the interview process. So let's have a look at some questions that you can ask yourself for reflecting. So asking yourself these 3 questions is a great introduction to reflection. There's what, so what, and now what? And what work experience do you have? So what did you gain from this experience? And now what do you know about yourself that you didn't know before? You can apply these questions to any experience, not only work experience. If you have a part-time job, or if you're part of a sports team, or if you're starting a new social activities, these questions can help you to reflect on those experiences. I'd encourage you to practice, and keeping a journal can really motivate you, and it's a great way to remember what you've learned. For lots of healthcare disciplines, reflective writing and practice can be a part of your training at the university and part of your professional development afterwards. So if you're looking to join a healthcare career, you really want to be reflecting, and you want to be keeping a journal and using these skills and developing these skills. So let's now consider an example of a journal entry for a part-time job. The what section records the work experience you've completed. And here's a tip: if you're using the journal when doing research also, you can use this, such as you can write down the websites that you've visited and any online work experience that you've completed. But remember to reflect on your research to get the most out of that as well. You can see that in this part-time job example, that time management, connection to the local community, gaining new skills, and working as part of a team are skills and knowledge that have been gained. And now we want to consider what you've learned about yourself from that experience. And you can see in this example that gaining confidence to ask for help and making decisions quickly are skills that have been developed. And you can also see that they've recognized that these skills are important in healthcare and something that they will continue to use with patients and colleagues. And you can also expand here and say how these skills will be used in a healthcare role. It's really important to reflect on your experiences as soon as you can, so you don't forget anything. And you then can refresh your memory on your work experience before you make an application to use in your personal statement, and also before the interview. So now you can use your work experience to help you during the interview. So it's actually, how can you use your work experience during the interview process is what I want to look at now. As we've discussed, your journal is where you need to record your experience, as well as your thoughts and your reflections on that experience. Perhaps you have a part-time job, or you help your grandparents or siblings in need of care, or perhaps you are part of a sports team. During the interview, you'll be asked a series of questions that are designed to help the university determine if you're the right candidate for the course. Once you've read and understood the question, you can then consider the work experience example to support your answer. And it's important that you can demonstrate how this work experience example links to the question, as your example is your evidence to support your question, the question that you're being asked. And to show you even greater awareness, you can show how the question links to a career or the course that you want to join. And here's an example of a question to demonstrate this. A patient is showing signs of distress, having received some bad news. So what would you do in this situation? And we've put some suggestions here to really get you started with this question. And since you want to work in healthcare, this is really a chance for you to show how to show the university how your values and skills are needed in healthcare. And you can show the skills and the qualities that you have and how they align with healthcare. You want to find the perfect example that fits the question to show that you have this experience, and that you have watched, or possibly that you've watched healthcare specialists demonstrate the required values of behaviour. That's also really relevant experience. And this question is specifically about assisting a patient who is in distress. So how does this situation demonstrate the skills required of a healthcare worker? Thinking back to the key competencies that we were looking at and the NHS values. And remember, working in healthcare can be demanding, and we don't always get everything right the first time. We want to hear that you're all about your strengths, obviously, But we also want to hear where you've addressed any weaknesses, if that's relevant to the question. And this demonstrates that you reflected on the situation and made the necessary corrections. So now I want to get Omar back in so that we can discuss reflection, because I know that you've done a lot of that over your years at St. George's in medicine. So do Omar give us an idea of how you would use, how you've used reflection in your course?
So it's the same concept. I thought what you said about what, so what, now what is very, very useful as to how to reflect, and that's essentially what we've been taught as well. We've been taught a bit further as to how to reflect in detail, but the idea is the same. So it's observe and state what you've seen, but also what you've learned from it, and then how you'll take that on board and improve later on. So that's the key thing with reflecting, is state what you've learned and then how you've learned from it and what will you do in the future that's different based off this information.
And why would you not stop at just the now what do you know about yourself? Why do that extra step of the so what did you gain from the experience?
The extra step is the step that allows you to grow. It allows you to gain new skills. It allows you to understand what you are yourself and then how you can get to that next level. Just identifying sort of weaknesses or things that you've seen is good. It's a good first step, but you need to go to the next level to actually gain something from it and gain something from the experiences that you are going to.
So by gaining something, you maybe you go and away and do some extra research because you've not understood something. Is that what you're meaning?
Yeah, exactly. So we can apply this example. So for example, to this talk that we are at right now. So what is the talk that we're at? So what? So we've learned today how to gain work experience. But then the now what? The next step is actually going out there, getting some work experience. It's actually using this information that we've learned to take you to the next level.
That's a great way to think about it. Thank you so much, Omar. And I also want to, because obviously, as I've said in the webinar, work experience gives you insight, but also it's very necessary for and important in the interview process. So can you advise our audience how to make the most out of their work experience when thinking about the personal statement and specifically the interview process?
I think what you mentioned about the journal or a diary, just to write down your experiences, that's very, very important, particularly when you go on to write your personal statement. And that's what I struggled with, because I never wrote down what I actually saw. So you don't even have to reflect on it at that point. But when you actually write down what you saw, then when you go on to write your personal statement, you can be like, oh, I saw this is what I learned from it. Or when you go on to prep for your interview and you think, okay, I need to think of some examples of how I've shown or demonstrated good communication skills or teamwork. Oh, let me just go back to this diary and see, oh, this is what I observed. Now I can think of some examples. So having a diary and writing down stuff is very, very important. And when we say diary, it could literally just be a Word document or a piece of paper where you write down your experience. It doesn't have to be anything fancy.
Yes, exactly. And also keeping in the back of your mind that obviously we've shared with you the key competencies that St. George's are looking for, and I'm sure you remember that when you did your interview with us all those years ago, Omar. Keeping in mind that we're trying to test that you understand those and you can demonstrate those skills and key competencies to us, and also that you're in line with the NHS values, because for all of our undergraduate healthcare courses, we want to know that you are share the same values that we do. So did you during the process also consider thinking about, that's a key competency, or that's a competency that I should be thinking about? Because we often think of communication skills and empathy, but often forget about resilience and things like that.
Absolutely. I think back when I was applying, and this is specific to medicine, it was this document by the GMC called Tomorrow's Doctors. And on that document is all the sort of list of competencies that they expect future doctors to have. And I sort of use that document to see, okay, these are the things that I have, these are the things I need to work on. And I'm sure this can apply to pretty much every other healthcare professional as well. That's
a great observation. And you know, if you when you join a healthcare course and then graduate and join the career pathway, you're often part of a body that's there to assist you and also for the patient. So that can be a great place to start looking, and then think about where you will register in the future, as I'm sure you've thought about this, Omar, wanting to be a doctor. And you can work backwards and think, okay, that's where I want to get to, and what steps do I do to get there? And those sites can often have some great information about what it's like to work in that particular field. And as I said before, and we're going to give you some information at the end of the webinar, on our website, we do send you to some great sites, and often it is the governing bodies for the courses, the career pathways. So that can be a great place to look as well to get you started. Absolutely. So fantastic. Thank you so much for your insight, Omar. And what we're going to do now is I'd like to actually get our audience involved, because I'm sure we've had some questions coming in for you. And Jacob, have you do you have a question for Omar?
Yeah, thank you, Jenny. We've had quite a few questions come in, actually. Omar, I think you might have touched on this already, but just maybe briefly, if you could just reiterate what kind of work experience you did before going to medical school.
So I did 2 weeks in a hospital and then 8 months in a care home.
Amazing, thank you so much. And off the back of that, I know you said you didn't really perhaps do as much like reflecting as you kind of look back you would wish you did, or looking back. Someone's asked, like, how much time would you recommend reflecting on that work experience? Maybe now you've moved onwards, you're probably better off to place that. Do you think it's a half an hour after each piece of work experience, or kind of spend a couple of hours writing all these things down together? Any advice on that?
I think reflecting needs to be sort of an organic process. So it's not something like I'm going to sit down, I'm going to reflect. I think what you should do is bullet point the stuff that you saw and bullet point any reflections, but then go back to it later on, maybe a week later, perhaps, oh, this is something else that I think I learned from it later on, and go back to it once more. So it's not sort of the time duration that you spend, but try going back to it and seeing if you can add anything to your reflections would be more useful.
Good advice, yeah. Someone's actually asked, and I know you didn't do virtual work experience, but they've asked how can they reflect on that virtual work experience. Don't know if you have any advice around that.
So I think the idea is the same. It's what you observed. Perhaps you didn't do anything yourself, but what you observed and how that sort of changes or gives you an insight into the profession that you're going into. For example, you want to go become a doctor. You observed a GP consultation. Okay, so I saw how the doctor communicates with the patient. That's your reflection. Oh, perhaps using easy language or not using any medical jargon, that's a reflection. So it's what you've observed and how you think that gives you an insight into the profession is very important. And you can do that with any work experience. It doesn't have to be physical. You don't have to physically be there. You can just observe it and reflect on it. I hope that helps.
No, I think that's really good advice. Like you say, it's the similar process. Even if you weren't there, you still kind of watched it. You've took part in that element. So, yeah, really good. I guess this kind of links in as well. I think someone's asked, if I've got a part-time job that's not healthcare specific, it's not experience of being in a hospital, say, how do I link that in to this kind of, how do I talk about that, even though it's not ideally like in a hospital or in a ward or anything like that?
Yeah, I think so. I had a part-time job. I worked for a year in my gap year at a shop in retail, and I think I learned more from that than I did from any of my work experiences. And what I learned from that is how to communicate with team members, how to deal with difficult situations while at work, how to organize your time. And that is so easy to write about and talk about, because all of that applies to your chosen career, whether you do medicine or physiotherapy or midwifery, because all of that requires you to work in a team, to communicate with colleagues, to communicate with the general public. So if your part-time job gives you these skills and you've observed these skills, make sure you talk about them. And I think that's perhaps even more useful than attending a hospital ward round where you just watch a doctor write and say things that you don't understand. What you're actually doing in a part-time job, I feel like it's more useful.
And I'd like to add to that, because that's really great. Sorry, Jacob. That's a really great observation. Like, you've got your part-time work and you've got all these really key skills. And the next thing you also want to do is ensure that you describe these skills, but make sure to link it to the career that you want to join, the course you want to join, and make that extra step of saying, okay, I might have to deal with a demanding situation. Well, I've done that. This is the example, and I may have to deal with this in healthcare. So just making sure, if it's not healthcare related, the skill is still useful, but make sure that you told the examiner that you've made that link between the skill and it being a part of what you would be doing in the future.
Jenny, that was perfect timing, because the next question was going to be, how do you link your work experience into your kind of interview answers? Omar, would you add anything to that, or do you think Jenny's kind of covered it there?
No, absolutely. I think so. I'm also an interviewer for St. George's for medicine, and I think when I observe candidates and when they link their experiences to their work experiences to a career in medicine, that is the perfect answer. So, for example, you work at a part-time job and you find a difficult colleague, or you find a difficult situation with a customer. How you deal with that, you remain calm. You can say, okay, perhaps in the future when I'm dealing with a difficult patient or a difficult colleague in the workplace, how I'm going to deal with that situation. And if you link those two things together, that's to me, that's the perfect answer in an interview.
It's really interesting. How, from your experiences, how do you think people can best address when they talk about those weaknesses that Jenny mentioned, that they might have a weakness in this area? Like, how can they talk about that without it negatively affecting their interview?
I think you always have to kind of spin it in a positive way. So for example, I had someone that answered and said their weakness is that they like to take on a lot of work and they say yes to everything. And they can spin it and say, okay, well, I used to do that, but now what I've done is I've learned from that. I'm more organized with my time and I can balance my time better. So I've turned that weakness into a strength, if that helps.
Yeah, definitely. Really like you said, using it as an opportunity to showcase a strength, even though you're discussing weakness. Yeah. If you say
your weakness is that you procrastinate and that's it, then you haven't learned anything from it, you haven't changed, then that's not a good answer, if that helps.
Yeah. No, really good. Last question, I'm just going to check. We have had a few more come in, but I'll look at those whilst I ask you this one. So, do you think that reading books about your chosen course is considered work experience? Can you talk about that in some format? Maybe perhaps not work experience, but is it still worth discussing in your application or your interview?
Absolutely. I discuss books in my interview. One thing, make sure, because I had a friend that did this, he mentioned a book and it turned out to be the interviewer's favorite book, but he didn't actually read it or he couldn't remember it. And that comes up quite negatively. So make sure you actually read the book and reflect on it. And if you do talk about it, if it's actually had an impact on you. If you're going to talk about a book in your personal statement or your interview and you're just name dropping and saying, oh, I've read this 500-page book or I've read this, then that's not helpful. It's what you've learned from the book and how it's improved your insight into the career. That will be very helpful.
Just a little bit about personal statement. If you are going to add things like that, remember you don't have a lot of space. So you should be prioritizing any actual work experience that you have or online research. But certainly it can be, if it's relevant and you've got the space, then fine. But there's a limited space with obviously a personal statement.
Thanks, Jenny. That's really good. We've had a lot of questions come in about work experience, so hopefully that's been useful. We only have a kind of 2 minutes or so left, so I'm going to finish off with one question, and then we will come back to anyone else who we haven't answered by email. Omar, any suggestions for ways an applicant could show their leadership potential through perhaps kind of work experience, or ways they could talk about it in an interview?
I think sports teams is very good. If you're a captain of a sports team, or if you've taking part in a sports team, that would be very good to show leadership. Also, projects in school. So, for example, you want to raise money for a charity in school and you've taken a leadership role, you've made sure you've organized a team, you're doing that, that would be very good. So a lot of that's to do with either sports team or projects in school, I think. Or volunteering, perhaps if you're out there and you're volunteering in the community to show that you've taken this role on and you're leading people. Leadership is a hard one though, I've got to admit.
Thank you so much. Really, really useful. As I said, we will come back and answer other questions via email. So if you do have them, do pop them in the chat box, and we will come back to you. And I'm going to hand back to Jenny just to finish off. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Jacob, and thanks, Omar, for some great answers to some excellent questions from our audience. So thank you so much. So that's the end of today's talk. I want to again thank Omar for his valuable insight into work experience, and also thank you to Jacob for answering the questions behind the scenes from our audience. And also I want to also thank our audience for coming along and joining us today. As Jacob said, if we weren't able to answer your question in today's webinar, we'll be getting back to you via email over the next few days. And in the meantime, you can contact us on our social media sites, which are shown here, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. We're also going to be offering further free webinars soon, so you can go onto our Explore St. George's webpage and register yourself. Those of you who are interested in medicine, I think that's the next one coming up, but certainly go to the webinars page and register yourself. It's free, and we'd love for you to join us. You can also speak to our dedicated inquiries team, and you can see the details there. So if there's any questions you weren't sure about later on, give us contact us at the inquiries team, and we'll be more than happy to answer your questions. And if you'd like to know more about the healthcare programs that we offer at St. George's, you can visit our website, and you can also message our current students on a course that you're interested in via our website. So take advantage of that opportunity. And we hope that this talk has been helpful for you. And as promised, I'm going to now leave you with some website links to help you in your research and help you to get started if you haven't already. And thank you so much for joining us today. And that's bye from all of us at St. George's. Thanks so much for coming along today, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, I'm so sorry. It seems as if the details are not there. So what I'll do is I will make sure that these links are all sent around to you. My apologies that the links are not showing, but I will send that around to everyone in the email. Okay. Take care, everybody. Goodbye from St. George's.